Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nick Fire.
And I'm MarcTheTruth.
And this is another episode of the FireTruth Nerdcast, your weekly podcast for all things in the realm of nerd culture. And this week, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest shows that has hit Amazon Prime over the last year. They've had a few successes, but this is Bruce Timm, the legendary creator of Batman the Animated Series, the 90s series, Batman Beyond, Justice League, Superman, all those animated series that you saw on Cartoon Network or Toonami back in the day. Bruce Timm is the creator of, and he's back, teaming with Prime to create Batman Caped Crusader. It was a 10-episode series. It all released at once, and every episode, they all kind of connected. They definitely connected more than the 90s series, but they all had their own characters in it too. And we're going to be diving deep into all of that because especially I'm a huge Batman fan. Batman is my favorite superhero of all time. We just had a Batman Beyond fireside chat, if you want to go check that out, in honor of the Caped Crusader podcast. But before we get into all that, Marc, how have you been this week?
Good. This week was kind of a slow week. Nothing really crazy. Today we went to work, and there's a Illinois Vintage Fest that goes on every once in a while, and this time it was in Wheaton, so we decided to stop there on our way home. And cool event, but it's not a place, because I buy and sell vintage clothing, it's not a place you could go to like find stuff to resell. Like everyone there has stuff at a price that is for them to make money. But it was just way too fucking crowded. I think after like 30 minutes, I was like, okay, let's just get food and go home. I'm done. But I did get 2 new action figures that I didn't have from my Star Wars collection. So that was a plus.
Who'd you get?
So in the Clone Wars season 7, there was an episode where they did like a training module with clones. So there was 5 of them. So I got number 1 and 4 that came in like a box set. So I'm missing 1, 2, and 3, and 5. So I was able to get those 2. They came in a bag for like $10.
Sounds like a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, except I lost one of the helmets on the way home somehow. Don't ask how. I don't know.
Okay. Well, it did sound like a sweet deal until I heard that.
Yeah.
At least it was only $10.
Yeah.
I'm a very boring person, so I haven't really been up to very much. Though I did go see Borderlands, and it definitely was something. It's not as bad as everybody's saying it is, but it's not great either. If you want to check out my thoughts on that, there is a Borderlands Fire review that I did. But on a good note, nobody fell asleep in me in the theater this time.
Oh, that's good.
So, it was an improvement from Deadpool and Wolverine in the viewer experience. Definitely not in the actual content, but
I was going to say, I'd say, if they want to listen to that, have them go over there. But leave them with this. Was it worth leaving the house to go see?
Other than to do the video, no.
Okay.
I would have much preferred to have seen this on like fucking Paramount Plus or some shit. Anyways, that's how we've been doing this week. Not a decent amount, actually.
Nah.
Now, Marc, Batman Caped Crusader. We had a very brief conversation on this, and we quickly discovered that we have some varying views on this show. So I can't wait to get into it, because I feel like Marc and I have been pretty on the same page for the most part with everything. So this might be the first one where we get deeper into an actual, discussion here, instead of just kind of agreeing with what each other has to say or elaborating. So I'm excited for this. Now, Marc, when it comes to Batman, when you heard about this show coming out, because I believe it was announced in like 2021 that it was being made, what is your ties back to the 90s animated series, and what were your thoughts of Caped Crusader when it was initially announced?
So the original animated series, I believe, same thing as Batman Beyond, eventually got to the point where I was kind of just watching whatever episode was airing. Then later on, I went back and rewatched from the beginning. So then when they announced that they were redoing it, I thought maybe, or not redoing it, when they were coming out with this, and it was Bruce Timm and all that. I was like, okay, maybe it's going to be a continuation of where it left off. Obviously, it's completely different story, different timeline, but I was still excited to see it and watch it. As I started to watch it, I became less excited.
Interesting. When it was first announced for me, like the Bruce Timmverse or the animated series verse is my favorite of any sort of Batman. I think that is the epitome of Batman. Like, I don't think there's been any film that has nailed quite the aura and the presence that Batman and his voice actor, Kevin Conroy, has portrayed in that series. And so when I heard that Bruce Timm was bringing back the animated series, but it being a reboot, I was excited, but very skeptical because I personally haven't liked a lot of Bruce Timm's most recent work, which was, if you remember, I think we watched it together, the Batman Harley Quinn movie.
Yeah.
That was just kind of weird. And then he also had another one, Justice League versus the Fatal Five. I don't know exactly if he wrote that one, but I know he was a producer on it. And that one was not great either. So I was a little worried. But in my opinion, Cape Crusader was a return to form. Now, before we really get into our full-on discussion and you can hear Mark and I bicker, let's get into some of the background here. How was this show made? How did it come about? How did Warner Brothers fuck this one up, in my opinion? Because they've been fucking everything else up. In 2020, 2021, Warner Brothers approached Bruce Timm about doing a continuation of Batman the Animated Series. They wanted it to be an actual sequel. But Timm refused to return to that world because he has a been there, done that mentality, and with Batman at least. So he probably just couldn't think of anything new to do that would be interesting. And I could see that.
That makes sense.
So that's why he was more interested in doing this Caped Crusader, because it was a different way of going about Batman. And after more discussions with Warner Brothers, he started opening up and talking about his ideas that he had for the animated series in the 90s that went unused, or he was never able to do because of Cartoon Network and their strict television, policy back then. There wasn't much he could really do about it. But they started talking more and more, and eventually they kind of decided, okay, we'll allow you to do this reboot, and we'll put it on Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. Now, J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves, now if you guys don't know who J.J. Abrams is, he's the guy that did the Star Wars sequels and Star Trek and things like that. And then Matt Reeves, he's the one who created the most recent Batman film with Robert Pattinson. They grew interested in helping Timm develop this new series because they loved the 90s series like most people do. So when they heard that he was going to bring it back, they decided to jump on. Then in August of 2022, obviously you can see that Cartoon Network and Adult Swim did not get the show. For some reason, and I struggle to understand why, Max and Warner Brothers dropped Cape Crusader and shopped the series around to other streaming services if they wanted to put it out there and help finish it. And it was in league with Apple, Hulu, Netflix, but by March 2023, that's when Amazon Prime was the winner. And then the series basically went into full production. It has a 1940s noir theme and a lot of golden age character designs and definitely a more mature tone than the original 90s series had, obviously, because it was on Cartoon Network. Now, critics, and partially myself, are raving about this series. Everybody's loving this, except for Marc. It's Prime's #1 show, and it already has a season 2 confirmed because of its success. And yeah, after watching the series, I personally enjoyed Bruce Timm's unique take. I like the classic rogues gallery that he used, but the unique and clever spins that he put on some of the characters. And you could tell he really strived to be different from anything he made before. And I loved that. Now, Marc, what was your issue with that?
So I didn't have an issue with him being unique with the characters and doing a reiteration of certain characters. My issue came with the progression of the show. I felt like there was, from episode 1 to episode 5, there was just so many characters being introduced that were all different and rewritten as original characters, which is fine. I just feel like there was so many thrown at you in the very beginning. And then also I had issues with the animation. It just couldn't keep my attention. Like the story would go along fairly well, minus like the rush development of characters. For me, at least, it's just something with the animation threw me off. Like when they would show a side profile of them walking. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's called the Uncanny Valley. And it's in your head, and it makes you, it's something that seems real, but it's not. And it just makes you uncomfortable. For some reason, the side profile of them walking just made me uncomfortable.
I will agree that I don't really like Bruce Timm's new style or modern style. Even some of the more recent movies he's done have that sort of look, and I don't like it. It's too colorful. It's too blocky looking almost. And I just, for something that's based in the 1940s, right? This is a 1940s noir theme. Why is everything so colorful? I don't get it. Like, why didn't we do the same thing we did with the 90s animated series where we drew it all? I mean, I guess maybe because it's digital animation now, but the thing that made the 90s series so good was that they drew it on black paper to give it that just dark feel and look. And I wish they would have done the same here, because it just, I don't know. I never really felt like I was in the 1940s watching this show because it was all so 2024-ish, like animation wise.
Yeah.
I wish he would have done like the classic style. Now I know hand drawing everything is a pain in the ass, but with something like this that's supposed to be a reboot, I feel like maybe we should have done it.
Yeah, you should have stuck to the original form of it. Yeah, I don't know. It just, something about it made me uneasy. They all walked with like out moving their arms. It was just weird.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I definitely get not liking the animation. The story, it had its ups and downs, and we'll pretty much be getting into that because this time around, instead of going like episode for episode, we are going to go like an episode order, but I want to mainly talk about the villains because in my opinion, the villains are what make Batman the best superhero. He has the best villains. He has the best rogues gallery, in my opinion. Spider-Man's up there too, but I just like Batman's better. They all have these like tragic, dark stories. And the spins that Bruce Timm put on almost all of these characters was great. And the first one I really want to talk about is the Penguin. That was a big change right off the bat. How did you feel about the Penguin being a woman? That was a big like topic of discussion.
So when I first saw it, you see that they're at some ball or whatever, or dance. And I thought it was just, at first when I was watching it, I thought like, okay, they have someone portraying to be the Penguin singing and dancing. And then it was like, oh no, that is the Penguin. She is the one running everything. I liked it. It was different. It wasn't just some, I don't know. Every time I think of the Penguin, I think of the one from Batman Forever, the older 90s Batman movies.
Oh, Danny DeVito?
Yeah, Danny DeVito. I just think of Danny DeVito eating sardines when I think of the Penguin. So it was a nice change of pace. It wasn't also like, you know, they made her a woman where, you know, they try to make it like, oh, she's pretty, that's why everyone's doing everything. Like, no, she's a fucking badass. Like, she'll kill whoever she has to kill.
She's Big Mama Penguin.
Yeah.
And it was cool. I liked it. The ball that you're talking about was the Iceberg Lounge, which in Batman is like Penguin's hideout. But what they did with it in this series, instead of it being in Gotham, it was like on a cruise ship, which was really cool. I actually liked that. And then just Penguin being, I already knew Penguin was gonna be a woman going into the series because they revealed that like maybe a week before it came out.
Yeah, see, I didn't see anything revealing anything for the show other than like the trailer.
Okay.
So I just kind of went into it blind.
Yeah, I didn't think the characters were going to change this drastically. I was okay with it though, because I really liked Penguin being a woman. It was a different take. It's a different universe. So do you really just want to do the same Penguin over again? And in my opinion, people probably find this very controversial, but I actually thought she was better than the regular Penguin. I liked the layers that it added to her character and her with like her two boys.
That's what I say. And she had 2 kids. So it wasn't just like Penguin that has a bunch of henchmen. Like her henchmen were her kids and then other people.
Yeah, it added like another dimension to the character instead of it just being this little short dude. Another thing that we see in episode 1 around Penguin, the story around her, is the corruption in the Gotham City Police Department and how certain cops are in with the mob and in with Penguin's mob specifically. How did you feel about the corruption aspect in the series?
I like it. I mean, there's always corruption throughout Batman with the police force and all of that. But it also made a lot more sense for the time frame. Like, some of them are just with the mob, some of them are with her mob, some of them are with both. And I did like the fact that, when we first get introduced to Batman, he makes mention to that there's corruption.
Yeah, I liked it because Batman was basically, he had a lot on his plate in this one. Because not only, like you said, in a lot of Batman things, the cops are somewhat corrupt, but in this, like, the cops were almost the main antagonist of the entire series.
Yeah, almost all of them were in someone's pocket.
Flass and Bullock specifically, and I think that fits Bullock's character because usually he's like the lazy, no good cop, anyways. So
yeah, but he got shit on throughout the whole show.
He did. Oh yeah, he did. He definitely was Flass's like underling. He wasn't doing. He wasn't the one in charge there. But how did you feel about Barbara and James Gordan?
I liked it. I liked the fact that she was older.
True. And she was a lawyer.
Yeah, she's a lawyer and she's part of, the police force and the force governing Gotham. She's not just Gordon's kid that like you don't really see like in the Harley Quinn show, like she's a kid in college. Like in this, like she's an adult.
Yeah, I liked the take. It made her feel like a stronger character. Like she was a strong career woman, and like in the 40s, obviously, that was not as common as it is today. That also made her character a lot better too, just being this powerful woman in like an oppressive time almost.
Yeah, I just felt like it. You get Penguin, Batman, and then them. Like I just feel like that for me, that was too much in one episode to be introduced to, and then you basically got their whole backstory in one episode. Obviously, there's more that adds to it as you go on, but it was just a lot for me thrown at you.
And then they also showed Harvey Dent too in the very first episode.
Exactly.
I guess maybe they did, but I didn't really find an issue with that. I guess because these are all characters that we already know.
Yeah, we already know them, but it was, it's a reiteration of them. So it's like, okay, is Harvey, we learn he does become Two-Face, but it's like, okay, does Harvey Dent become Two-Face? Is a different character? Is he not in here? Barbara's older. Gordan is, usually he's dealing with corruption anyways, but.
Yeah, Gordan really wasn't much different in this show.
No.
He was pretty much just the same that he's always been. And it was more of like the, I think Matt Reeves had a lot to do with this. It was more like the Batman take on James Gordan. And not just because he's black, just saying.
No, yeah.
It's because it was just because his character felt very much like the same James Gordan from the Batman because Matt Reeves is on the project.
Yeah, one thing I did like about the whole Gordan situation is it's a different take. Like Batman goes to him, kind of, but more so goes to Barbara, which I did like that aspect. Like it's a different part to the story.
Well, like you said, Barbara's older. It's not like the original story where he knows Gordan first and becomes friends with him and then eventually meets Barbara and she starts working with him. So getting back to Penguin, basically the theme of the very first episode is that her and the other mob boss, Rupert Thorne, they're having like a mob war for control of Gotham City. And across all the city, warehouses of Thorns have been spontaneously exploding, and Batman is trying to figure out why. I think, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't look into this, but I think this is a story of like one of Batman's first weeks as Batman. Because a lot of like characters don't know who he is. Like, how like in the very beginning, they even say like, what, you believe in that guy? Like, really?
Oh yeah. Like he had just started his adventure.
Yeah, I think this is like one of his very first weeks as Batman, and that's why no one really knows who he is or takes him seriously until he's right in front of their face. But he's trying to figure out why these warehouses are exploding. And on the Iceberg Lounge, a lot of the cops and Rupert Thorne are there, kind of like that, not to do a play on words, but Two-Face, like a bunch of Two-Faces in there, you know, like, hi, how are you? I wish I killed you, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah, when I was in the car with you, I wish I would have just pulled the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, you weren't in that exploding warehouse. I wish you were, but
Yeah.
you know.
But thanks for coming.
Thorne basically points out to Penguin that, hey, the reason that I wasn't in any of those warehouses was I was tipped off, and I was tipped off by one of your boys. So Penguin's pissed about this. And this is one of the darkest scenes I've ever seen. I thought it was awesome. Where Penguin confronts her boys, and the one that Rupert Thorne pointed out, she grabs him, throws him in, like, was it a suitcase?
Yeah.
She like locks him in there and then drowns him. Literally drowns her own child like that. Just no remorse. And she ends up drowning the wrong kid. How did you feel about that part, Mark?
I didn't think it was the wrong kid because when he said it, he kind of looked over his shoulder at him. So I was like, okay, you just outed him, like whatever, you know, she's going to take care of it, however. And then she just flat out kills him and then finds out it's the wrong son.
That was a great plot twist.
So now you have to kill both your kids. Like, you killed the wrong one, and now you got to go kill your other kid.
And she didn't even care that she killed the other kid when that one guy, her guard, was like, hey, you got the wrong kitty. She was like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
That's what made this Penguin so sinister. That's what I'm saying. Penguin being a woman added to the character almost with the sons and stuff. It was almost a better interpretation than the usual Penguin that we get. I would go as far as to say that.
Yeah. I mean, there's added elements because she's a mother, and then she's a brutal mother.
So now the one boy that's still alive, who lied and said it wasn't him, is now shitting his pants because he knows that his mother's coming for him. Not only that, but he knows that his mother has a military-grade cannon on top of her cruise ship. So yeah, I'd be shitting my pants too.
Mm-hmm.
So he's at the police station. He tells them, hey, my mother's got this cannon. That's how she's blowing up all these warehouses. And she's probably going to shoot here next because she knows I'm here. And not only that, but Bullock and Flask are crooked cops and tip her off. So Penguin goes to use her cannon. And this is when Batman arrives undetected in his Bat submarine, or his Bat sub, which I looked into this. And apparently the Bat sub is a vehicle he specifically used to use in the 1940s detective comics. So that was a little nod to that. And there was a lot of nods like that to the 1940s in this series that was pretty cool. But Batman, you know, he gets on the Iceberg Lounge. He starts fighting Penguin's men, then starts fighting her. The Coast Guard shows up that Commissioner Gordan called in to try and stop her from blowing up the police station. Batman's fighting her. He thinks he has her because he breaks her umbrella, but she uses the end. She outsmarts him and uses the handle to pull the cannon's lever and blows the shit out of the police station. What did you think of that scene, Mark? Like, that being the ending of the first episode, basically Batman failed.
I thought it was a nice touch because it's, you know, Batman's first introduced. No one really knows who it is. And then, you know, he has a chance to show everyone like, oh, I'm going to stop all the crime that's happening. And then he fails immediately. And he was outsmarted by her. But then it's kind of just left at that.
Well, it kind of, I think, just inspires Batman that, you know, normally when we see Batman, he's a character that's usually always outsmarting people. He's usually always 10 steps ahead of everyone else, except for like the Joker, because the Joker is just unpredictable. But usually he's always ahead of everybody. In this, you know, I really liked how he failed right from the start. And that kind of not only sets up the suspense for the series, but he straight says, like, I cannot let this happen again. And a theme of failure is kind of a big portion of the season, failure of Batman, because he actually fails a few times and it causes a lot of issues. So this was very character building for Batman himself. And I liked how the first episode ended like this. It had me hooked from the start when he failed, because I just thought it would be like a normal Batman the Animated Series. He wins in the end. Now that we're past that, you know, Penguin, I guess it's kind of just assumed that the Coast Guard arrested her.
And put her in Arkham.
We'll probably see her again in season 2, maybe, or in a future season if they do more than 2. The next character I want to talk about is from episode 2, Clayface. This may have been my favorite episode. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'd probably say this was one of my favorite episodes for sure. Clayface in this series, Clayface regularly is an actor, but he gets transformed into clay, obviously. But in this version, it's the 1940s, so they went with the 1940s interpretation of Clayface, where instead of being this giant hulking monster made of clay, there was a lot of mystery to this, and he could shape his face into being whatever he wanted to be. And something that I really liked was they never called him Clayface in the show, which was cool. Like, it added almost a layer of realism to it, that they weren't just these wacky characters calling themselves by their name.
Yeah, he was just a attempt to fix something that went wrong.
Basically. So in this episode, there's a famous actress, Yvonne Francis, I think her name was. And Bruce had just gone on a date with her. And then within minutes, she gets kidnapped after he drops her off. You'd think Batman would be able to protect his date a little better.
Yeah. Like, at least make sure she got in the house, dude. Like, that's common practice.
Shit, you know how dangerous that city is that you live in? You just drop her off and leave her there? So this kind of brings in another character, Detective Montoya. How did you feel about Detective Montoya in this series?
Wasn't really a fan in the beginning. Like, I felt kind of like Bullock and all them. They're just like, why is she in charge? That changes as the show goes on because she starts to figure shit out. But for me, it was just another character that was like, you just introduce another villain. Now you're introducing another character.
Detective Montoya, like, at first I kind of agreed. I was like, do we really need to have another character here? But then I really grew to like her as the show went on, and especially as the episode went on, because she basically is like this hard-nosed cop. She's the only cop that gets anything done in the whole department.
Yeah, and she's not corrupt either.
She's not corrupt, and we find that out in the very beginning because Bruce tries to bribe her, and because obviously she's interrogating him, because it's like, you're the last person that saw Yvonne. What the hell happened? And he tries to bribe her just to see what her morals are, and she doesn't go for it. So he decides to use her as a tool, puts a little tracer radio thing on her, and I kind of liked how he had this big ass 1940s radio in the back seat of his limo. But he listens to what Montoya has to say, and so he can eavesdrop and figure out what happened to his date. She goes to the studio, the movie studio, and I like, anytime you get to like an old school theme, like a 1940s, you always have to go to like a movie studio. It's just kind of like something you have to do.
Yeah, because it's so different than how they are now.
Yeah, exactly. And Montoya goes there and she interrogates Basil Carlo, another famous actor who tends to play the villain to Yvonne's damsel in distress. Carlo lies and basically says that I haven't seen Yvonne recently. She's been hanging with the wrong crowd. I don't know. But when Montoya figures out that he was lying because she sees a photo of him and her together not too long prior, she goes to his apartment and finds a knife in his back. Now, obviously, we know, if you watch the episode, that wasn't really him that got killed. But what did you feel about like the mystery in this episode? I loved it. I liked how I really couldn't call what was going on exactly. I kind of knew that Carlo would probably be the villain, but I didn't understand exactly how we were going to get there. And I liked how the episode kind of kept me on my toes.
Yeah, I liked that there was the mystery aspect, because when you'd go and see that he gets killed, it's like, okay, now the other suspect besides Bruce Wayne is gone. Like, who is it going to end up being? Yeah, I liked how it was fast-paced mystery too, because it wasn't just like, it's not a regular show where they're going to show you that like he got killed and then it goes to commercial and then the show's over. It was just boom, all right, we figured that out, on to the next person that could be a suspect.
Yeah, and then Batman obviously finds the killer right off the bat.
Yeah.
And Clayface, basically, and fights him, and then that's when he rips like the scarf off and sees this like horror movie face, which was, I liked it. I mean, Clayface isn't one of my favorite characters, but this interpretation of him I really loved.
It was done well.
It was much better than him just being some like dude from Brooklyn that's like just like becomes a blob. So basically, Montoya goes around, interviews, the studio, what the hell is going on, and she discovers that Carlo had a crush on Yvonne, but felt he was too ugly for her, and he was too ugly to get leading roles, which is why he was always like the monster in the film. And they lead her to a makeup artist, Jack Ellman, who was supposed to fix Carlo's face, but Ellman was fired after they got into like a little fight on set. Batman discovers more clues after searching, and he finds out that some of the actors Montoya interviewed were already dead while she was interviewing them, because he finds them under basically like the concrete
stage
of the studio. Yeah, under the stage. And he also finds out that Basil Carlo's body at the morgue is fake. It wasn't a real body. So who the hell was that they saw get stabbed? And basically this is when we find out that it was actually the Jack Ellman guy. He experimented on Carlo, gave him like the shot in the face to where his face was like kind of droopy, but he could shape it and to make it look however he wanted, and he can look like whoever he wants to. So when he got fixed, Carlo went to go profess his love to Yvonne, and she still turned him down because it was just weird, too weird for her. And he basically turned into the monster that he always played in his movies, which was some cool symbolism.
Yeah.
And he basically gave Ellman the shot too, and then changed his face to look like his old one to trick everybody into thinking that he died. He also kidnaps Montoya. So we find out basically that Basil Carlo is Clayface. And then this is where Batman gets involved, and Batman and Carlo fight while Montoya tries to save Yvonne. They have this like big little battle here, and Batman, it doesn't take much to beat him because he's just an actor. And I kind of like that too. He's not like this serious super villain. I kind of liked how all of the villains in this show weren't like very serious super villains to more towards the end of the show.
They're all like mid-tier characters to kind of get Batman's feet wet as he becomes Batman.
Yeah, I really liked that about the show. I liked how it kind of led us into some of the more serious stuff later. But I really like this interpretation. I like that Basil Carlo and Clayface was like a classical actor approach. And I don't know, I really liked it. I thought the episode was awesome, and it was one of my favorites. Was it one of yours too?
So to me, the episode, it was good. Like I liked the mystery aspect of it, but it was, I don't know, it felt like it was too slow paced for what was going on.
It's a mystery though.
I know, I get that. But that is one of my biggest gripes as the show goes on, is like you get introduced to all these new characters, and I think by episode 3, like everyone, and then their stories kind of develop. But I just felt like everything was very slow and monotone.
Okay, I guess that's fair. We'll have to get back into more of that later. Now, I will say this. Episode 3 was my least favorite. We get into Catwoman, and usually Catwoman is like one of my favorite characters in Batman, but in a show where you're changing like everybody, why didn't he do anything with Catwoman?
I mean, I think the only thing he did different was her going and living in like a motel
and having her like little maid or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, this was the same story you've seen a million times.
Yeah, and the Catmobile was cool.
Oh, the kitty car.
Yeah.
That's actually, I thought it was the Catmobile, but it's actually called the kitty car.
No, it's Catmobile.
It was the kitty car from the 1940s, Marc.
No, it's the Catmobile.
Catmobile does sound better. But I don't know, like Catwoman,
She's a
I
petty
usually
thief.
love Catwoman, but yeah, she's just a thief. She collects cats. She has a fetish for Batman. This is the same exact thing that you've seen 100 times before, just in a different style of suit, because she's wearing the 1940s like purple suit, which I don't even think looks that good. So I don't know. This episode really not even much happened. I will give Christina Ritchie, I think her name is. Credit though. She's the one who played Catwoman. She did a good job, like voice actress wise. If you don't know who she is, she's Wednesday from the 90s Addams Family movies. She did a good job. And I like that they went with the black haired Catwoman. I don't really like the blonde one. I've never really thought blonde fit Catwoman for some reason.
No, because when you think of a cat and like what she does, like you think of a black cat.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't think of a brown or blonde cat.
No, I've never liked the blonde, so I'm glad that they went with the black hair. The only real good part, like about this episode, it wasn't Catwoman, but the good part about this episode was actually the introduction of Dr. Quinzel, which, Mark, you said you didn't even know was Harley Quinn.
I didn't even catch it. I was like, Dr. Quinzel. Like, okay, that's an interesting name. And that was
they introduced Harley Quinn as actually a psychiatrist in this, instead of, like, usually her story goes that she was a psychiatrist, that the Joker twisted her mind. In this, she's just a conniving, tactical psychiatrist. That was pretty cool. We'll get into her in a second, but I just wanted to talk about how they introduced her, and she was kind of like Batman's psych in this episode.
Well, Bruce Wayne's.
Oh, well, yeah, Bruce Wayne. Yeah, Catwoman, I like I said, for a show that was striving to do everything different, I don't know why he left it the same.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, couldn't you have made her like a foreign wildlife preserver or some shit?
Yeah, or like she grew up with wildcats.
That's what I'm saying. Like, couldn't you have made her like some sort of like exotic foreign like wildlife preserver who comes and starts like, I don't know, rescuing like tigers and shit from the zoo?
Yeah, that would have been completely different and fun. Yeah, I would say this was like the filler episode of the show.
Yeah, I didn't like this episode at all, and I didn't like Catwoman at all in this show. Though the next villain was one that I found to be interesting. Firebug. What'd you think of Firebug, Mark?
I had no idea who it was. You know, when they introduce him and then they go and basically break him out of jail, and then they leave his costume. I thought the whole storytelling were like, hey, we're gonna leave this here. Oh, we have car trouble. You know, the back doesn't lock anymore. Like, kind of hoping that he wasn't dumb and knew, like, okay, I can escape and take my shit. But I like how when he puts the goggles on, he just sees fire everywhere. And then he goes and creates fire. I don't really know what his motive for it is.
I think he's just mentally ill. And
just mentally ill and wants to burn shit.
Yeah, I think he just thinks like because in his vision of fire, he saw that fire was like made everybody happy.
Yeah, because all the kids were still playing and all the parents were still outside and like having fun.
So I think he was just some like, you know, mental dude who just thought fire is good.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
That's one of the first times we see like major corruption.
And Flash kind of does the thing where he tells Bullock like punch me.
Yeah, like play it out.
Yeah, I really liked like the connivingness of Flash and how he was really the main antagonist of the entire show.
Yeah, they were involved in pretty much everything.
Pretty much. I mean, they were almost in every single episode. Now, Firebug specifically, I had to do a little research because I didn't know who the hell this was either. I know Firefly. He's pretty popular. But even in the show, they call him Firefly, and then he says, I'm Firebug. So I had a feeling that meant something, and I just wasn't sure what. When I did my research, I found out that Firebug is actually a 1979 Batman villain that people confuse with Firefly. So that's why they made the mention to that. But really, he's not actually Firefly, though in this interpretation, they kind of did a cross between the two because his suit did kind of look like Firefly. In the comics, he looks more like gas masky and stuff.
Yeah.
From what I saw. And then there's one where he looks like an actual bug flying around. He looked more like a Spider-Man villain than a Batman villain. I don't know, but I thought it was different. It was a different villain. I kind of like this one.
It was a nice touch to have something that's not a basic villain that everyone knows for Batman.
Yeah, I really enjoyed how this show explored characters that I'd never heard of before. And now we're going to start getting into more of those.
Yeah. But that being said, with it being a character that like no one knows, that's where it lost my interest. I was like, oh, I have no attachment to this character. Like I'm just kind of just watching this episode.
Like that doesn't intrigue you when you see a new character?
It does. I just didn't care for his character.
Well, yeah. I mean, his character, he wasn't really the main point of this episode. He was more just like a tool that was being used by the
Yeah, he was more so there just to show more corruption.
And even like Batman, this is actually the first episode where Batman and Gordan come together and like save some kids from the burning building.
Yeah, and he kind of just ignores that he's there. He's like, okay, like get these kids out. I'm going up.
Yeah, and you can see like the corruption gets really bad in this episode, like we talked about.
Yeah.
But at the end, Bullock shoots Firebug out the window. And because of that, you know, the photographer gets a shot. They publish it in the newspaper, which back in the 1940s, the newspaper was everything. And in that, it framed him as a hero. So the crooked cops end up looking good and Gordan ends up looking bad.
Yep.
So the mayor basically puts Bullock and Flass in charge of trying to take down Batman, because this whole episode as well, they're trying to find a way to take down Batman because they think he's becoming some kind of a threat. You know, that's a typical Batman story, but it was cool. I liked seeing Batman and Gordan work together. And then I liked the whole thing where Flass and Bullock did something fucked up, but then they ended up looking like the heroes because of just, you know, even back then there was corruption in media.
And they were basically just cleaning up their mistake.
Right. Let's get into Dr. Harley Quinzel. I'll say this. It was a very different interpretation of Harley Quinn. We've never seen anything like this before. But if anybody has a right to change Harley Quinn, it's Bruce Timm, because he is the creator of Harley Quinn. I enjoyed this interpretation a lot. I thought it was really cool how, again, she was, instead of being this buffoon to the Joker, she was a calculating and cold psych who tortured rich clients into giving up their money. How did you like this interpretation of Harley Quinn compared to how she was originally portrayed?
Well, once I figured out that it was Harley Quinn, because I didn't put two and two together, I liked it. I liked that, you know, the only way you really found out that she was the one doing it is because he found her checkbook with all of the signed checks from people that were popping up or missing. I do like the fact that she's not the typical like red and black Harley Quinn. Like she was a jester Harley Quinn.
Wasn't she like in gold?
Yeah, it was like gold and green. It was like it looked like Mardi Gras. I like that interpretation, and I like the color palette because it was different. It wasn't the typical red and blue or black and red. I would like to see going forward if she pops up again, maybe and somehow gets entangled with Joker, and it's a whole different story of how that happens. But yeah, I thought at this point, this is where the show is going to pick up for me. And then I'm going to start to like more of the characters and start to like the show as it progresses. But that still just didn't happen.
Man, that's rough, because this was another one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, I'd say it was my favorite episode of the whole show. And that's why I thought, like, okay, this is where it's going to pick up. I'm going to start to like the show more. But then it just kind of, for me, it dialed back and became slower again.
That is funny, because for me, like, I felt the later episodes were the better ones, except for episode 7, which we'll get into, Onomatopeia.
Yeah.
We'll get into that one, but other than that one, I liked all the later episodes. But let's just talk about Harley Quinn right now, or Harleen Quinzel. Like you said, I like the jester take on her. I like that she not only was torturing the rich people, but she was dressing them as buffoons and like fools. Like she dressed the one guy up as King Tut, which another callback to old school Batman. King Tut was in the 1960s Adam West series. So I liked all the little callbacks in this show. Another thing I really liked was in episode 3, we were talking about how she was the psych to Bruce Wayne, because in that episode, he punches out a photographer for talking shit about his mom. And I kind of liked how she actually got in his head and kind of psychoanalyzed Bruce. And again, one of my favorite themes in Batman, and I love when this is explored, and it was explored through Harley Quinzel, is how Bruce Wayne is the mask. Batman is not the mask. Bruce Wayne is.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne is not a real person. He's a phony. That is Batman putting on a mask, going out and playing a role. When he gets back into the cave, or in personal moments, we even see when he enters like his limo with Alfred, he goes back to being Batman. And that like she kind of psychoanalyzes him and really kind of brings that part out too.
Yeah, and I like how when she's talking to him, like, you realize that the version of Bruce Wayne we have in this is basically just a rich douche.
But that's the role that he plays.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. I love how in this show specifically, they play into Bruce playing up being the rich douche. Like, you know, he's always out with women. He's always spending tons of money. He's always in the public eye. Like he's, you know, he even tries to bribe a cop. I kind of like how he isn't afraid to do dirty things when he's Bruce Wayne, just to see and test people's loyalty and like morals. But when he gets back to the cave, like his voice changes.
Yeah, his voice
which was
changes
something
too.
that was cool. Yeah, I always liked, and I liked how they even played up that. Not that, you know, every series plays into the fact that his parents' death is what led to this, but that one scene was really fucking ominous when he like goes into Alfred's room. Do you remember that? Like Alfred is just laying there in bed, and he just goes in there and he's like, "I'm gonna make them all pay,
and you're
like,
gonna help
7.
me, and you're gonna help me." And Alfred's just like, "What the fuck?"
If I was Alfred, I would have resigned right there, bro. I've been like, this kid's possessed. But of course, Bruce, you know, he doesn't listen to Harleen. He's kind of playing her while she's playing him. And he doesn't continue with her sessions. And that was a good thing because he avoided getting roped into her game, which we find out is the Playroom, which was another scary, you know, name. I love when something scary is called like the Playroom or something like fucked up. So the Playroom is in Harleen's basement, and that's where she's keeping all the rich clients and humiliating them and just basically brainwashing and manipulating them. Now, Barbara starts to kind of catch on to this in a way, and Harleen has 2 relationships in this episode. She's friends with Barbara, and she kind of has like a romantic relationship with Montoya. I thought this was kind of pointless. This felt kind of just shoved in there, to be honest with me.
Yeah, the only way I could feel like it was justified is as like, you know, behind the scenes of her being a doctor, she's doing all of this to these guys. I viewed it as like it was her way of keeping a detective close so she can throw him off the trail of what's going on, so it doesn't lead back to her.
It could be why she was friends with a lawyer and a detective. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that sense though. That's kind of some, like, I feel like we have to think deeper into it for that. It wasn't,
yeah, that's
like,
what I'm saying.
really
Like that's
shown.
how you could justify it, but I don't think that's how it was intended. I think it was just a love story that was added.
Yeah, it was. I don't think it was intended that way. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I feel like it was one of those like 2024 isms.
Yeah,
it was like you kind of just have to put a gay relationship in the show just because we feel like we have to. But I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like when stuff is just forced in just for the sake of it. Like, give it a point, give it a reason. Like what you just said was perfect.
Yeah, had they given it that point, it would have been fine, but I think it was just added in just to add it and have it be there.
Yeah, just to have it there. And it's like, I guess you could make the argument that like you don't have to make that point for like a straight relationship so much, but sometimes you do though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it could be argued both ways, but personally, I don't like when a show focuses on a relationship when there isn't really a strong reason for it. Yeah, it could be straight, gay, it could be anything.
Yeah, it doesn't push on the story.
I mean, I literally just said I hated the fact that Batman and Catwoman had this pointless ass relationship, like in this show that shouldn't have even been there in the first place. So I just don't like it. I don't like when romance is just forced into something with no real explanation. Now, what you just said, that's great. I wish they would have played more into that. I would have been so down for it then. But I don't know. It could be headcanon. It could be what was intended, but just not shown very properly.
Yeah.
Either way, Barbara starts getting suspicious of her doing these things, goes to the house that they suspect something's happening at. Batman goes there too. Batman breaks into the house, finds the playpen, and basically Harleen is out on her date with Montoya, gets called back to the house because her butler, I guess everybody has a butler, I guess is the 1940s. She basically has to cancel her date, go back to the house. Batman is basically has to fight all of these brainwashed rich people in like Tooth Fairy costumes and
they're all deprived, so they're all like, this is your way out if whoever kills them can leave.
And then she ends up trapping Batman in the playpen, and it's actually because of Barbara that he gets saved.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for Barbara, he probably would have died.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
Batman. He would have woke up and been
Well-
like, oh, I'm going to escape this little box now.
True. But this is a Batman that fails. So
Which that's another showing of it. He did fail.
yeah, he failed, and not only did he fail getting himself trapped, but he didn't save Harley Quinn.
No.
Like, he just let her fall. And Batman normally wouldn't do that. But this Batman did, because what happens is Harley comes back, gets all of the rich clients to go after Batman, traps them. Then she sets the house to explode. But when Barbara's in there and she discovers Barbara's in there too, she tries to convince Barbara to come with her. Obviously, Barbara, being a Gordan, isn't going to do that.
No.
So they're all trapped in the house. The house explodes. It's falling off a cliff. Barbara grabs Harleen to stop her from falling off the cliff. But Harleen says, drop me because I don't want to go into Arkham with all those psychos, because I'm not one of them, even though she might be the worst.
Yeah.
She's probably the worst of them all. And yeah, that's basically when Barbara can't hold her anymore, drops her, and then Batman just comes flying in, saves Barbara, but lets Harleen fall to her seeming death. But of course, this is superhero cartoons. No one actually really dies. She didn't die. She ends up somehow calling Montoya and telling her that, hey, listen, I got to leave town for a while. Maybe when I get back in, we can continue this relationship. But till then, I'll see you later. I don't think Montoya is going to want to continue this relationship after she finds out what happened.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's told her at this point.
I would hope fucking Barbara would tell her.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, maybe she doesn't. But like you were talking about, we'll probably see her again because there's going to be a season 2. This is a character that I think has to come back for season 2. I am curious to see if she has any involvement with the Joker, because the Joker was revealed at the end of the show as like a post-credit scene kind of thing, or kind of just the ending of the show.
Yeah.
So a very different Joker, which we'll talk about. I don't know. I'm kind of okay with this Harley Quinn kind of just staying Harleen Quinzel.
Staying on her own.
But if they do find a way to do it where they come together, I would like to see Harley and Joker have more of a partnership in this than a relationship. But that's really my final thoughts on Harleen Quinzel. The next character that we want to talk about is actually, I think, my favorite one of the entire show. We get to episode 6, Gentleman Ghost. This episode was fucking awesome, Mark. And I don't care what you have to say.
I like this episode.
Okay, good. Because this was a great episode. This was the best episode in the whole show. Actually, what was your favorite episode of the whole show?
Probably this one.
Okay. What was your least favorite?
1 through 4, 6 through 9.
You got to pick one.
No, probably the Clayface story.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit. It wasn't Catwoman?
Oh yeah, I well, see that I forgot about her. Yeah, it was Catwoman. I mean, that was just a filler character episode.
Okay, please don't tell me that was. Oh my god, I almost had a heart attack hearing that.
No, I forgot about
my
Catwoman.
Second favorite episode. But yeah, Gentleman Ghost. This was awesome. I've never heard of this character before, and it was fucking dope.
Yeah.
Okay, because Gentleman Ghost, basically, he is a man named Jack Craddock, an 18th century aristocrat from when Gotham was first established. He was a noble with a gambling addiction who believed that only he deserved wealth and the poor should be robbed. But after being caught robbing the poor, he was hung for his deeds. I love that, like the 18th century. I did not see this character coming at all. And at first, I thought it was going to be like a Scooby-Doo thing, like we talked about a couple
where
days
it was
ago.
like, oh, he's going to capture him, and it's like, oh, look, it's so-and-so.
Right, like...
I would have got to wait for it, too, if it wasn't you in your bat costume.
Yeah, right, but no, instead he actually was a ghost.
Yeah.
And it was cool how Alfred was like building that up throughout the whole episode, where he's like, it might be a ghost, and Batman's like, no, there's no such thing as ghosts. And he finds out there is a fucking ghost.
Yeah.
Because he starts fighting it and he can't do nothing to it.
Yeah, he can't do anything, and then it possesses Alfred.
Yeah, it does possess Alfred, but even before that happens, so this ghost is going around robbing poor people in Gotham, and Batman's trying to figure out why. What would a ghost want with money? And then obviously he finds out it's because this ghost robs the poor. That's why he died. He likes robbing the poor. He hates poor people. What an asshole, this guy. And he's stuck here in this realm because he believes he's owed a piece of Gotham City. And I love spirit stories like this where they're stuck and like you have to do like a ritual or something. Like that's why The Witcher is one of my favorite series of all time, because that's like the entire point of The Witcher. He does different things to rid spirits and stuff from Earth or Novigrad, all that stuff in The Witcher. Here, it's Batman doing it in Gotham City in the 1940s. It was just a wacky episode. It's literally a 1940s Batman fighting an 18th century ghost. Like, how much wackier can it get? But he believes that he is owed a piece of Gotham because his, would you call it an ancestor?
Yeah.
Someone in his lineage, like the modern day Craddock, is selling his home. And that's what's kind of made the ghost come back. He's pissed that this guy's selling the home. And something that I thought was very clever, I don't know if you caught this, but Lucius Fox was the one that was buying the land. And it was clever writing with the fact that Gentleman Ghost was pissed that Lucius was buying it. And he even kind of makes a little crack at him. Like and Lucius gets pissed about the crack. Basically, like he's pissed that a black guy's buying his land.
Yeah.
Like that was actually very clever. I really liked that was even kind of thrown into it. It kind of made the show feel more mature than obviously the 90s series was.
Yeah, as mature as you can get with a ghost fighting Batman.
And not only that, Batman has to do a blood ritual.
Yeah.
Which I never thought I would see. Batman straight, he has to go to this guy Linton Midnight or something. I think that was his name. And he's like a guy in mysticism, and Batman couldn't punch this ghost. His hand got frozen, but the ghost was beating the hell out of him. So he just kind of listens to Alfred and says, okay, let's just say it is a spirit. I'm going to go see this guy. And the guy basically says, all right, listen, you need the deed to the land and you need a nobleman's blood. Yeah, you got to burn the deed to the land, right? And you need a nobleman's blood. Alfred just so happens to be a noble Pennyworth. So we got that covered. We get the deed. And yeah, we have to do this burning blood ritual in a graveyard, which was sick. I never thought I would see this in a Batman cartoon. How did you like the ritual and kind of like what happens during it?
I liked it. I mean, obviously for story purposes, like, you know, he's going to fail the first time he goes to burn it. But you could have easily just, you know, thrown it into a fire and then he couldn't stop you. But I like how it starts it and he's able to kind of get an advantage, and then he stops the fire and kind of loses that advantage and has to do it again. And Alfred's the one that has to burn it because he's fighting the ghost.
Like you said, Alfred gets possessed.
Yeah, and at that point, Alfred gets possessed by him.
But of course, Batman, you know, they're able to burn the rest of the deed to the land. And Linton gives Batman this vial and basically says, trap the ghost in this. And he does. And then he gives Linton the vial with the ghost, like, spirit in it. And that ghost freaks the fuck out.
Yeah,
so
he's like, why are you... Don't leave me with this guy. Don't leave me with him.
Batman's like, what are you going to do with him? And he's like, you don't want to know. And Batman's like, yeah, I don't. So a dude who can torture spirits I want to know more about that. I want an animated series on this guy.
He's probably going to become a problem in season 2.
That'd be awesome. I'd like to see that. I don't know. I want to see more of this guy. I don't know who he is. I need to look him up.
Yeah, or he doesn't become a villain. He just, Batman starts to encounter more supernatural type things, and he's kind of just like not a guide, but like a reference that he can go to.
I've always been a big fan of like when Batman gets dark, like that,
Yeah.
or like spiritual and stuff. I really liked Justice League Dark, dude. I think we watched that together, where like Batman's joining with Constantine and they're fighting demons and stuff. I don't know what it is about that I like, but for some reason Batman works with it.
Well, yeah, and it's also like, it's the aspect that Batman is just a dude with a costume and some gadgets, and then he's fighting supernatural stuff.
Like people view him as a demon, but now he's fighting real demons.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like when Batman gets supernatural. I kind of hope James Gunn does that a little bit in something at some point. That would be so sick to see in like a live action.
I mean, with what his plans are, I think we're eventually going to get something like that.
Right. Yeah, we might see something. Another thing that's good to point out from episode 6 was this actually expanded on Bruce and Alfred's relationship in the show, because when Alfred gets possessed and they kind of talk for a split second, Bruce, like after Bruce frees him, Bruce tells him like, I couldn't do this without you.
Yeah. In order for him to stay Batman, he needs Alfred's help. Like without Alfred, he can't do anything. He has no research man, basically.
Yeah, and Alfred is what keeps him grounded.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I've always liked about Batman and Alfred's relationship, is that Alfred is kind of in a sense like a subconscious for Batman. Like he kind of keeps him on the straight and narrow and doesn't let him overwork or get too into like what he needs to do sometimes. Sometimes he pulls him back into reality. And I like the relationship they had in this show, and that gets expanded on even more so later. But the next villain we're going to get into is from episode 7, Onomatopeia, who was a character I've never fucking heard of. Did you know anything about him?
The only thing, like when I first saw him, and like you see all the other mercenaries get off the bus, and then he pops up, and I don't remember what noise he made, but I was like, does he not talk? Is it just noises?
Yeah, he saw the like water. He said drip, drip, drip.
Yeah. And then you told me his name was Onomatopeia, and I was like, okay, well, that makes sense, because then throughout the whole episode, it's just noises that he says.
Yeah, I really liked his design. I thought he was like really cool looking. So this was a villain I actually decided to look up, and it basically, he's like a trained killer assassin, obviously, because he's after the contract on the Gordons. But like you said, he only makes noises to what he sees. He doesn't speak.
Or what he's doing.
Right. Like, so the Gordons are on the run. They think he's after James Gordon because someone put a hit out on him. Really, he was on Barbara the whole time, and they didn't realize that. But there's a part where Barbara and James's car breaks down, and the oil leaks, and that's where he says drip, drip, drip. He sees it, and he's like drip, 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 drip. And he follows it all the way to them, hiding in these like, like houses that are being modeled to buy. And that's where we find out that actually the contract was on Barbara from a former client that didn't like, or I think from Blackgate prison, which I like that they added Blackgate, because you don't hear about, you always hear about Arkham, but you don't hear about Blackgate. So I like that they added that, and dude was kind of pissed that Barbara got him in Blackgate. He wanted to be in something better. So he put the hit out on her, and a bunch of killers went after her. Onomatopeia goes after her. But in the end, Batman takes down Onomatopeia pretty easily.
Like that, I think it was a quick fight just to kind of have him make more noises, because as he's fighting Batman, he's like bang, pouch, pow.
And Batman takes down him and his whole like gang pretty effortlessly, but that's where one of the cops that's working with Gordan, like we see more corruption in the GCPD, because dude straight turns on Barbara and says,
he's like, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I got to kill you now. It's not on your dad. But of course, I think Gordan, her dad, stops him, right?
Yeah. I think she had turned him around, so like the front door was here, and he not opened it, but he walked to the front door and ended up shooting him.
Right. But yeah, not really a lot to say on Onomatopeia. He was just an obscure character.
I think it was just a villain to put in there to kind of throw you off, because you don't really realize till the end that it's Barbara. So I think it was kind of just to throw you off from that being Barbara as the main target.
In a sense, he kind of reminded me of like Deadpool somewhat. Kind of just being this like wacky, like, I don't know, like just this killer character that is like not serious.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He was cool. His black, like full black costume with like a white swirl on his face. I don't know. He was a cool character. I maybe would want to see more of him just to see what the hell he's like.
Yeah, I'm guessing he's in Arkham.
Yeah, I would assume so. So that's Onomatopeia. Not really a lot to say. Episode 7, I mean, besides for episode 3 with Catwoman, this was my second least favorite episode.
Yeah, I think it was more of a filler episode. It was just more to show corruption again. But it's a cool character that I wouldn't mind seeing again. Just, I don't know, maybe more of like a diabolical version of him, like where he's more planned out and has more of an arc.
Want some kind of revenge on Batman or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be cool. It'd be cool to see him hunting Batman instead. Maybe season 2. Now, the next character we had, episode 8, was Natalia, aka Natalia Knight, or also Nocturna in the comics. I didn't know anything about this character either, did you?
No, at first when they said the name, I thought like something to do with Ghoul and all that, and then it was a completely different Natalia. And then also when you were introduced to her and there's that one kid, Jason, I thought, okay, maybe they're going to do some version of Jason Todd too.
Well, did you realize that all of those kids were Robins?
Yeah. But then I realized that that's not where they're going. It's just a nod.
One of them might be.
Maybe.
But yeah, basically this is about a carnival coming to Gotham. And in this carnival is this girl, Natalia, kind of like a Wednesday Addams look. And just this like creepy teenage girl. And she's luring these orphans away and sucking the energy or the life force out of them, which was pretty cool. This episode definitely threw me off. I didn't really expect a lot of the things that I saw in it, and it was kind of the ones that kept my interest a little more. But all of the orphans, there was a few of them. There was Dick Grayson, Jace, Jason Todd, Stephanie Brown, and then Carrie, and that's Carrie Kelly from the Dark Knight Returns films or comic book. So all of the orphans were based on Robins. Now, I'm not sure if that means that is who they are. Carrie was the only one that, to me, that seemed like she had the potential to actually become Robin in this universe of Batman, because she actually helped him out and used the slingshot and stuff. So maybe we'll get some Carrie Kelly action in Caped Crusader, which would be cool to see more of a female Robin, which we don't typically see often in media, only in comics, really. But anyway, so Natalia is luring these kids away, sucking the life force out of them. And she has this brother, Anton, and they work for the carnival. And basically, he is growing afraid of her because as she sucks the life force out of these kids, she's growing stronger, but she's also losing control. Like, she wants more power. So she keeps, instead of just sucking one orphan. Okay, that sounded very poor choice of word.
Phrasing.
Yes, I forgot about phrasing. We need to use that more. Anyways, instead of sucking the soul out of, well, I guess that's bad choice of words too. Son of a bitch. Either way, she's draining the life force of these orphans. And she's losing control, and her brother's growing concerned, and she wants more and more and more power. So Bruce Wayne just so happens to be at this carnival, and he's trying to figure out what happened to these orphans too. How'd you like Killer Croc being one of the Carnies?
Didn't catch that.
Really? You didn't? He was the one that punched him in the beginning.
I now that you say it, I know who you're referring to, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a Killer Croc cameo, which was pretty cool. I liked seeing that he was working for the carnival and wasn't just living in a sewer or something. At least he had a nice paying job.
I don't know how well Carnies get paid, but
Yeah. But either way, so Bruce Wayne finds out there's some shit going on at this carnival. He dresses up as Batman and tries to find out what's going on. He interrogates Anton after he finds Anton basically buried under a bookshelf because his sister pushed him and it fell over on him and she left him because her mind is all clouded from power. And basically her brother dies. She basically killed her brother because of doing that and leaving him there. But her brother tells Batman, like, she can't stay out past sunrise. You need to get her inside. So Batman goes to find Natalia, and that's where she goes after Carrie. But Carrie is a smart little girl and uses her slingshot and runs away. She runs into the woods, and Batman goes after him. Natalia basically, and I don't want to fuck this one up with more sucking off Batman, but she basically corners Batman and goes to energy drain him, and Carrie actually saves Batman, which was cool, which is why I'm thinking she might actually be Robin in this universe, which would be cool. I'd like to see that. I liked her in the Dark Knight Returns comic and movie, so it'd be cool to see more of her. But Batman, basically they beat Natalia and then kind of tell her that her brother died, and she breaks down because she didn't really mean to do that. Sunrise starts coming up and she starts melting away, but Batman, being the kind-hearted soul that he really is, scoops her up in his cape and shields her from the sunlight, even though Carrie's telling her, yo, let this bitch die.
Let her die.
Like, what are you doing? She's a freaking demon, basically. I always like that. I always like when Batman shows that he has like probably the biggest heart of all the DC characters. And, well, maybe not more than Superman, but sometimes.
Fuck that guy.
Hey, I wrote a great movie about him.
You did?
I'm actually going to redo that video because unfortunately, our James Gunn Nerdcast has a lot of bad, what is it, your like heater or something in the background?
Oh, probably.
Or your AC. So I think I'm going to re-upload that Superman, my Superman film with like our new audio quality just as a fireside chat.
Okay.
So I think that'd be pretty cool. But so yeah, if you guys haven't heard it, you can check out our James Gunn podcast if you can bear through it. If not, I'll be putting that up so you guys can tell me that I'm an awful writer and I should kill myself. So at least there's that. Anywho, I actually really liked this episode. What did you think about it?
I liked the episode. I like the fact that there was a Killer Croc cameo. I didn't catch that. To me, like this kind of episode, like, yeah, it's one and done. Like, we're not going to see the carnival again. I think that is a great opportunity for like a horror movie. Like a carnival comes to town, something in the carnival wreaks havoc on the town. And before the town can figure it out, they're on to the next town. And it just is a continuation. Like it keeps happening town to town until someone eventually figures it out.
Has nobody ever made a movie like that before?
I don't think so.
Well, if they haven't, don't steal our idea.
Yeah, let us write it.
Marc and I are going to write this out and we're going to have the next big horror movie. So yeah, overall, I actually really liked this episode. I liked the character of Natalia and Nocturna. I actually looked more into her. And apparently this is a character that Bruce Timm has been wanting to put into something for a long time. Apparently he tried to put her in 2 episodes of the 90s series, but just couldn't figure out where or how to do it.
Couldn't make it fit.
So this was his time to do it, and I thought it was pretty cool. I'd like to see more from her because I thought she was just interesting. Now, though, let's get into our final villain to talk about, Two-Face, the one that this entire show basically builds up to. How did you feel about the build-up from episode 1 all the way to 9 and 10? And did you like this interpretation of Harvey Dent?
Yeah, I thought it was good build up, and I thought it was a good interpretation. You know, throughout the whole show, he's obviously the DA. He slowly falls into the corruption to try to win. Kind of stuck with that battle of like, all right, do I do this? Do I not? Because then he's offered that lump sum of money to kind of put in with the donations he got, and then he's told you have to basically let someone that is a part of Rupert Thorne's group, and he's told like you got to basically let him walk. And he's stuck with that dilemma, and that's where, you know, that final crack is where we get to him.
Yeah, Harvey basically, he started falling in the campaign polls, and so he cuts a deal with mob boss Rupert Thorne, who's now basically in control of the whole city because Penguin got beat, and she was the only one that was kind of keeping him in check. And they even talk about that in episode 1. Alfred basically says, you just gave the whole city to Rupert Thorne. This kind of leads back to that, where Thorne is now in control of the cops. He's in control of the whole city. And Harvey falls in with him because he wants to become mayor. And he trusts him. He figures, okay, this guy can get me in. But like you said, at the carnival, he gives him that money and tries to tell him, hey, listen, I need you to let my boy go. And Harvey actually decides to do the right thing and say, no, I'm not going to let him go. I'm the mayor, or I want to be the mayor, and I need to do the right thing for the people. Throughout the whole show, Harvey kind of seems like a scumbag until this moment. He actually has like a change of heart. And I don't know if you know anything about like the original Two-Face from the 40s, but I only know this because my mom's boyfriend, Marc, and his brother, Scott. His brother, Scott, is a big Batman fan, and he talks to me about Batman a lot. And he told me that in the old comic books, there's a scene where Harvey Dent was a lawyer who got acid thrown in his face. And that's how he became Two-Face back in the day.
So they did a callback to that comic book.
Yeah. So it was cool. I would have never known that if it wasn't for Scott. So basically, yeah, that's what happens here. Harvey thinks that he's going to be up in the polls. He did the right thing. He's going to prosecute this guy, and he's turning on Thorne, the mob boss. Thorne gets pissed and sends one of his boys, Tony Zito, to go into the bathroom with Harvey, like follow him in there, and then he throws acid in Harvey's face and basically ruins his entire campaign. I like the way Two-Face looked in this show too, because he looked like the old comic book.
Yeah, it wasn't, not half face painted, but it wasn't like, one side's purple and one side's normal. It was, no, he got burned with acid.
Yeah, it was just like a regular skin color.
It was just his face was burned.
Yeah, it was just messed up. So that was cool. I really liked that callback, and I'm glad that Scott told me that, because I probably would have never caught that if he wouldn't have told me that. So basically, yeah, like after this is like the start of episode 9, Harvey is mentally destroyed after what happened to him. He had to pull out of the campaign because no one's going to vote for him, or at least he feels that way, because he lets it get in his head that like now he's a monster, or that he thinks people are judging him.
And he feels that because this slight change, they're going to judge him. It's like, no, you're still on the path doing the right thing. And now you have the opportunity where like that happened. Like you could just out everything that happened and everyone would vote for you. Like, okay, well, he's going to be on our side. They did it to him.
I agree. But it's one of those things where like, if you put yourself in those shoes, imagine how you would feel just like walking outside.
Oh yeah, I get it. And that's where we get to the point where Bruce tries to bring him out as a friend, basically trying to use him and get information. And that's where you see him flip, and he's like, all these people are looking at me, but it's the complete opposite. Like they're all like glad that he's out and about and like doing better.
Right. But he believes they're all judging him and like, talking shit about him. And he even says like, I should go stab that guy right now.
Yeah.
But that's like Two-Face coming out of it.
Yeah. Basically, Harvey's letting Two-Face and the intrusive thoughts win.
Yeah, he starts basically gaining a second personality, which is a regular thing that happens with Two-Face. That's not really anything new here. Actually, now that I think about it, they really didn't do anything new here with Two-Face besides how he becomes him.
Yeah, and it's even now we know like that's not really even a new thing either.
No, it really wasn't, but it is something that I don't think we've ever seen in like entertainment or media before, which was cool. But you're right. Bruce takes him out for dinner because Bruce and Harvey are friends in the show. Or at least, I think Bruce just pretends to be his friend.
Yeah, to kind of keep someone that's there in his pocket, per se.
Right. And Bruce brings him out and starts kind of questioning him about what happened. And later on, Alfred actually judges Bruce for doing that. And I liked that. I liked how Alfred, again, kind of plays the subconscious to Batman for what he does. Like, he kind of tells him, like, I think you went too far. Like, actually, in a sense, that was the moment that made Harvey snap. Well, really, was when he was in the restaurant with Bruce after being questioned. So in a sense, Bruce is kind of the one that created Two-Face.
Yeah, he's that voice of reason and tells him, like, you don't see the wrong in what you did. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but it's too soon for someone that went through that to be out and about. Like, you, in a nonchalant way, told him, like, you basically just created the villain that we're seeing unfold now.
And like that villain most likely would have came out anyways, but it was like Bruce doing that and like bringing him out to dinner and questioning him in this like high stress environment is what pushed him over the edge to become that monster. And I liked how Batman actually snapped for the first time in this show. Like he actually yells at Alfred.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I've ever seen before.
No.
So that was cool to see. It was different. They had a little bit of a strenuous relationship in this episode. But basically, Harvey decides, okay, the cops are all corrupt. And I'm now this monster, per se. But I'm going to start doing the right thing. I'm going to start getting revenge. And I'm going to start by killing these people. Killing, like, the Rupert Thorne and his boys for what they did to him, but also serving his own form of justice, as he likes to put it. That's where he starts going throughout the city, taking down different guys of Rupert Thorne's, until he eventually finds Tony Zito, the guy who threw the acid in his face, and he burns him alive.
Yep.
Pretty great scene there. I liked how dark this whole show had with a lot of the deaths.
Yeah, he burns him alive and basically is like, all right, now I've gotten to you. Now I'm going after Thorne.
Yeah, he goes to Thorne's house, drives right through the fucking front door.
Yeah, and almost hits his son, but then, you know, he does make that point and he's like, are you crazy? Like, you almost killed my son. It's like, he didn't know your son was there. Like, he's just after you. But if your son gets in the way, he doesn't give a shit at this point.
And his son does get in the way. His son steps in front of him and says, don't kill my dad, or like, you have to kill us together or something. And Harvey's like, all right, so be it.
Fine.
He said, I'll kill two birds with one stone. He goes to put a bullet through both their heads. And then, of course, that's when Batman shows up, stops him. And this was where we actually see Harvey come back out, and we see that he isn't in control anymore. He's losing it mentally. Because even after, when Batman beats him, he gets on his knees and Harvey basically like pleads, like, please arrest me.
Like, help get me away.
And that's what they do. However, you'd think that would be the end of the show. But it wasn't. Because Barbara just had to go and fuck things up. She becomes Harvey's lawyer. And that leads into episode 10. And they kind of had somewhat of like a rivalry, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because she's a lawyer. He's the DA.
Barbara's like, okay, I'm going to be your lawyer. I'm going to get you out because you're actually a good person. And we're going to find a way out for you.
Yeah, you just need help.
Harvey, on the other hand, doesn't see it that way. He thinks like, dude, leave me in here. And he was probably right.
Yeah.
Because not only is he mentally insane now, but everybody and their mother is after him. You know, Bruce goes to visit him in the psych ward, tries to convince him to like, hey, you know, Harvey, get treatment, you know, don't just stay locked up in here. And when Harvey's on his way to his trial, he gets kidnapped by our favorite crooked cops, Bullock and Flass. These guys just love kidnapping people, huh?
Yeah, that's corruption.
So Barbara follows him, and Dent, actually, I really like this scene where Dent gets in Bullock's head and starts telling him, like, you're basically like the bitch.
You're the fall guy.
This relationship. Yeah, you're the fall guy. Like, he straight tells him, like, Flash is basically setting you up as his puppet and then fall guy when he gets caught. Because you've done all the bad stuff. He hasn't done anything. Then just be with you. And then when Flash goes to punch Dent kind of kicks Bullock and the whole car flips over. I don't know how the whole car flips over. I feel like they maybe should have just crashed into a fire hydrant or something. But the whole car flips over. This is where Barbara gets involved. And because Flash and Bullock are like knocked out, and Barbara gets in there and she puts handcuffs around Harvey and herself. You look like you have something to say about this.
This is where one of my complaints comes from in the show as well. She puts it on her left hand. Now, when you sit in a car and drive, your left hand is on the window. How did she drive with him on her left hand?
That's a great question for Bruce Timm.
That doesn't add up.
And the animator.
Like, are you just dragging Two-Face along the whole time? Are you sitting with your hand out the window? Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to go back and look at that. Yeah, that's probably just one of those little like errors.
No, it's a
that
minor
one caught.
continuity error. But I caught it and I thought about it and I was like, how did she drive? Because she drove to the next scene that we get to. It was like, how does that work?
Damn, Bruce Timm, MarcTheTruth is coming for. He's spreading some fucking truth here about your series.
It's a minor miss in editing.
I don't even notice stuff like that because I don't like think about it. I just like, okay, so he put the thing around her, or like they just
they're handcuffed.
put
Yeah,
the
whatever.
handcuff on. Okay, moving on. I don't even think about that stuff, so that's funny. That is absolutely hilarious. Actually, I like when stuff like that happens. Kind of like in Game of Thrones, how nobody caught the Starbucks cup sitting there in one scene. Just like, how did nobody catch this when hundreds of people probably looked at it? So she puts the handcuff on Dent and herself, and she handcuffs them together because Dent's basically like, I'm just going to go after Thorn again. So she's like, no, you're not with me. So they're like, basically they try and get away. Bullock and Flash follow them. They kind of meet up with Rupert Thorne's men, and they're on these docks, and basically Flash is like, nobody gets off these docks. We got to kill Barbara too. Like, nobody leaves these docks because they're going to rat us all out. This is when Batman and Gordan show up to help Barbara because Barbara actually calls Batman on the bat phone.
Yeah, which we kind of brush over that. That's her way to get a hold of him instead of the signal is a bat phone right now is what they have.
And the bat phone is from the 1960s Adam West show too. So that was pretty cool to have that in there. There was a lot of homages. I'll talk about more of them at the end of this, but basically, they're all on the docks. Batman and the others start fighting Thorne's men. Harvey gets shot trying to get away, and this is basically almost the end of him because he starts slowing Barbara and them down. He also starts trying to convince them, like, listen, nobody changes in this city. Stop trying to save me. Stop trying to save everybody. Gotham is a horrible place, which it is.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with him there. But, of course, they don't listen to him. And Flash gets a good shot at Barbara. He goes to kill her. And this is when Harvey jumps in the way of that bullet because he's already shot. So I kind of liked how Harvey ended up being a hero.
Yeah, he went out a hero.
I really liked that. I liked how he wasn't just, thrown in Arkham and this crazy guy. I liked how this interpretation of Two-Face was a sketchy guy who did something wrong, realized it was wrong, and became good, but also kind of became like self-conscious of what was really going on and kind of telling everybody that like this city fucks everybody up and you guys need to like realize like you can't save this city.
Yeah, this city is doomed to fail.
And everybody in it is doomed to repeat what they've done to make it fail. But I liked how he went out being a hero, saving Barbara. And this was, to me, the most interesting scene of the entire show. Because Harvey dies, and Batman sees what happened. Obviously, he was friends with Harvey, so he gets pissed. He picks up a gun, and Batman actually contemplates shooting Flash and killing him. He takes about 10 shots, and then you see that he didn't shoot Flash. He shot around him, like an outline of his head, missing every shot, and then he just throws the gun away. But I really liked how this Batman actually thought about using a gun. It continues to show like this was him very early on.
Yeah, this is before he has his set morals and his set guidelines that he does follow.
And I liked how this show basically showed like him fail time and time again, but kind of figured things out and then actually built on him as a character by this being probably the moment that changed him not being a killer.
Yeah.
Also, it was a nod to the fact that 1939 and 1940 Batman used the pistol. But yeah, there's only 2 times that I can recall Batman using a gun in anything that I've ever seen. And it was this, where he contemplated killing Flash. And then, of course, in the beginning of Batman Beyond, where he's hopeless and he just points the gun at the crook to get him to run away. He wasn't going to shoot him, really, but just having to put him in that position made him give up being Batman. Again, Batman Beyond, great show. If you haven't seen it, go check it out and then listen to our revival fireside chat because WB is fucking up with not bringing that one back, but they got this one. After it's all said and done, Flash and all them get arrested. Obviously, this isn't the end of corruption in the cops, but the main ones are gone for now. Alfred comforts Bruce that he isn't like Harvey.
Well, I think also it's the beginning of like Gordan realizing like he's not bad, because he tells him like get out of here before they come.
Right. This is the start of their relationship, really. Probably eventually maybe leading to the bat signal, because they did show the light that would become the bat signal at some point. But anyways, Alfred comforts Bruce and tells him that he isn't Harvey. And this is the first time where Bruce calls him Alfred instead of Pennyworth, which I liked.
Yeah.
Because throughout the entire season, he calls him Pennyworth. Like he's devaluing him because he's his butler. But this is the first time where he really acknowledges him as like Alfred, my friend.
Right.
Which was cool. I like when shows do stuff like that. And then the ending was really just Batman going to Rupert Thorne. Rupert Thorne thinks he just got off because literally everybody he terrorized is dead or arrested or whatever. And he's still sitting at home cushy. But Batman throws the Batarang through his window right to him on the couch. And that was a pretty like powerful scene.
Yeah, like that it was showing him like, I'm still here. I'm still the law.
And I'm coming for you. So it's going to be really cool to see the interplay between Batman and Rupert Thorne, and I hope that's something we see a lot more of in season 2. And then, of course, obviously, we kind of talked about it earlier, the ending was the Joker. But what did you think of this Joker?
From what I saw, it seemed as though he was drugging people.
Seemed like he was definitely experimenting on people somehow.
I don't know if it was, some kind of laughing gas that he was injecting him with, or if it was some other drug that he was kind of just seeing who would survive and how far he could push it.
He also has dark hair and a really deep toned voice.
Yeah.
This interpretation of Joker is going to be something completely different from what we've ever seen before. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. Just to see what kind, like obviously he's still going to be like a sick fuck.
Yeah.
But this could be more of a dark instead of a like Joker's more of a character who's like, I do shit just to cause chaos for chaos's sake. But this could be more of like a conniving Joker, or one that has more of a purpose.
Yeah, I do shit to do shit.
Yeah, like I don't know what he could be up to. Obviously he's experimenting with some kind of drug. It'll be cool to see eventually what happens here into season 2. There's a lot heading into season 2 to look forward to, so at least I'll give them that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, like there's minus like my complaints with the show, which mostly are just aesthetic things. Like there's a lot going forward that could be really interesting going into season 2.
I wanted to just give out a few more shout outs or homages that I noticed. Did you have any before I go into mine that you caught that we didn't talk about?
No, I think we caught most of the ones I caught, and there was a lot that I didn't catch that you brought up. So,
well, maybe we'll find out a few more, because something that I noticed was Batman, his city map was with the red traces and stuff on it. That map is the exact same one Adam West uses in the 60s.
Oh, really?
Batman show. It's the same layout of Gotham, and it's the same sort of like clear board. Alfred, actually, if you watch the show, he's kind of a portly man in this version. And that's actually what he originally looked like in his very first comic appearances.
Oh.
So I always just thought he was an old man.
Yeah, just an old butler.
Apparently he was a chubby dude before, so he lost some weight over the years. There was also a really cool Easter egg that I definitely didn't catch. I only caught it because I, looked some stuff up before this. But Lois Lane is in the show. She's the reporter that has the redder hair, and I think she's in 2 episodes. And she's actually the 1940s Superman cartoon Lois Lane. And the final one I have is, I didn't catch this either. This is another thing that I saw in looking up Easter eggs and stuff. Dr. Quinzel actually mentions that she has a colleague, Jonathan Crane, who obviously Jonathan Crane is Scarecrow. So Scarecrow in this show is going to be pretty fucking scary.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for the time frame and what they've done.
So definitely season 2 for Scarecrow. Like, sign me up. I want to see that. What could you do with him to make him different? I mean, every interpretation of Scarecrow is completely different from the last. So it'll be cool to see what happens with that. So overall, I mean, we have like Joker, we have Harley Quinzel, Rupert Thorne, Scarecrow, all sorts of characters to look forward to showing up in season 2. So I'm looking forward to a season 2. And overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the series. I enjoyed watching it, and I liked Bruce Timm's unique takes on the Rogues Gallery, and even making Batman a little more human in this than he normally seems in other things. Mark, if you had to give your thoughts overall on the show, how was your like overall feeling about it? And are you looking forward to a potential, or not a potential, but like an actual season 2?
I mean, for the sake of the podcast, yes, I'm looking forward to a season 2, and maybe season 2 will be the season that grabs my attention and makes me want to sit down and watch it. As far as like my thoughts, like I said, like there are minor things that just threw me off from the show, and like the only thing I can think of to fix those issues. But at this point, going to season 2, like everyone's introduced character wise, but like maybe a little bit longer of episodes so you can get the full introduction of characters instead of it being rushed. And then, you know, maybe if it's a longer episode, you would think it might be slower, which was one of my complaints. But with it being a longer episode, like you're able to build more and kind of build that tension, which then takes away from it being slower. And just, I don't know, fix the side profile walking. That'll help. That'll help me a lot.
Yeah, me and this guy, we really disagreed on episode 2. I can't believe how much we're disagreeing on episode 2. That was like a masterful episode. Like, I thought the tension was built up perfectly.
Like, I don't think it was a bad show. I think I don't know. For me, it just wasn't very attention grabbing. It didn't, like, as the episode ended, I was like, do I want to watch another one, or do I don't wait till tomorrow to watch another one?
Wow.
It just, I don't know. It, for some reason, the show just did not gravitate with me. I really don't know what I could say to like help that, because I feel like I'm the only one in that position that just the show did not catch.
Kind of, because everybody that I've seen online has like nothing but good things to say about it.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it just, I don't know.
No, I'm not going to say it was perfect. It certainly wasn't perfect. I had my fair share of issues with it too. But overall, I just liked the unique spin that they took on it. But yeah, visually, I can understand. I really didn't like the visuals. Like I explained, I don't really like a lot of Timm's new visual works.
Yeah, but maybe now, after doing the episode and hearing your perspective on it and things that I didn't catch, maybe rewatching it will draw my attention, because maybe I went into it with like the wrong outlook, expecting certain things that I knew I wasn't going to get. So maybe a different perspective after doing this might change it. I might be like, okay, yeah, no, I want season 2 now.
I think that is how you have to go into Cape Crusader to really enjoy it, is you just have to look at it through the lens of this is something different than, instead of similar to. And that was what made me enjoy it. Like, I'm a huge Batman fan. So when I see a character that I've never been shown before, it makes me excited, because I'm like, how is this gonna affect Bruce and Batman? Because I've pretty much seen it all. So when I see characters like Onomatopeia, Natalia, characters like that, it makes me get excited, because it's like, this is something completely new that I've never seen before. And that was basically what I saw almost throughout this entire show, except for Catwoman.
Yeah. You know, I'm on the same boat with you as far as like the characters, like, you know, they're characters we haven't seen. Like, how does this work? Where does it go? I think the main issue I had is just there was too much going on in the episodes. Like, there was too much underlying story happening as these characters are being introduced. With the whole carnival scene, you know, there's the underlining thing of Harvey starting his corruption and taking the money. And I feel like for me, it was just too much to focus on in an episode.
Too much to happen in a 20 minutes.
Yeah,
basically.
I think that's what my biggest issue was with, as far as it keeping my attention. Because like, there's too many things to me to pay attention to.
I can kind of understand that because I can agree with you that I think the episodes did need to be longer. I don't know why so many platforms are afraid of making longer cartoons. I mean, I know that it does. I think cartoons do cost a lot of money to make, but some of these episodes could have probably benefited from being 35, 40 minutes. And it probably would have been a much better show.
Yeah, because then, the story of the villain happening and then all the underlying things happening with the other characters wouldn't have been rushed.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that. There's certain things that I don't exactly get with what you're saying. Certain things, like episode 2. But then, other things like that. Like, I definitely agree with you on the visuals and maybe some of the characters. Like, Onomatopeia would have benefited from being in like a 40-minute episode.
Yeah, because it would have been fun just to have him see certain things and been like, meow, meow.
Even Natalia would have benefited a lot from a 35-minute episode.
Yeah.
I can agree with you on that aspect for sure. I would like to see longer episodes, though. I don't think they're going to do that.
No.
I'll give a shout out, though, to, I don't know how to say his name, so don't kill me if I say it wrong, but Hamish Linklater. He's the guy that did Batman in this show. And I thought, he's not Kevin Conroy, but nobody is, But I thought he did a good job. There were a few lines that were a little off. How did you feel about his performance as Bruce and Batman?
I thought he did a good job as far as voice acting. Obviously you're always going to get Bruce being different than Batman. But I feel like in this, he did a good job of capturing the fact that, like, he is Batman. Bruce Wayne is the one that is his pretend character.
Yeah, this show did an incredible job of that. And he even had a little bit of, like, Kevin Conroy-isms in his voice, too. Like, there were times maybe if I closed my eyes, I could have potentially heard Conroy. So he paid tribute to it, but also made it his own. And I thought that was good.
Yeah.
I also, how did you feel about the 1940s theme? Did you think it actually added anything to the show?
I think it could have if it was given more of a darker tone. I think that was the one issue with it being set in that time frame. It was too bright.
I like the idea of it being in 1940s, but I don't think they focused on that enough. Like, the original 90s animated series, I think, is in the 60s, and it really didn't feel like it was in that much different of a world than that one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't think they focused on it enough. They did certain things like the radios and stuff, but I would have liked to have seen more thrown into it other than just what people were wearing.
Right.
But it was still cool. But yeah, I do really wish they would have went with a darker color scheme. It just felt too bright for like a noir theme. Like, when you think of noir, you're thinking like old black and white movies and stuff like that. Like old like mystery detective shows, or I don't know. I just don't think of this colorful show.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
My final thought really is I can't believe that Max let this one go. Why did they not think this would help their service?
Maybe they watched it and viewed it the same way I did.
Maybe, but to be fair, do you really want to be compared to the heads of Warner Brothers right now?
No, I do not.
The guys who somehow just misplaced $9 billion. They thought they had $9 billion more than they had. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I don't know how that happens.
How do you fuck that one up so bad? But then again, they haven't rebooted Batman Beyond, so they've been fucking up all over.
Maybe that's why they thought it had $9 billion, because they would have. That's the revenue they'd probably get if they rebooted it.
Yeah, I don't know. Warner Brothers right now is a mess. I heard they're selling off their entire games division because do you know that Suicide Squad game that came out?
Mm-hmm.
That game cost them like a few, like $200-300 million.
Jesus.
like it put them in the negative, and then they just misplaced $9 billion or thought they had $9 billion more. So like their quarter right now is looking like $10 billion loss. How does the second biggest company to Disney do this? Like, what? How is this even possible? But apparently they're going to sell off Warner Brothers Gaming, and apparently they're going to start selling off the rights for. I don't know if this counts for TV and movies, but at least for video games, they're going to start selling off the rights for other studios to make like Batman games or Harry Potter games and stuff.
I mean, that's a smart thing to do.
That's smart. Yeah, I actually am happy about that because Warner Brothers, if you know anything about the gaming side, they've done an absolute shit show of a job over the last 10 years. And they continue to, because I don't know. I don't understand why this wasn't on Max. They're probably regretting that it wasn't on Max now because it's number 1 on Prime.
Yeah, they're probably looking at that as a missed opportunity, but now you're not going to get that asked. Like, you're not going to get asked to get it again.
No, this is Prime series now. It's not yours. So I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on at Warner Brothers. They need a whole new management team. But at least they let this show get produced. And at least in a positive, whether you like the show or not, the one thing I can say is this is the best Bruce Timm project we've had in a long time.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So I guess we'll just settle with it on there. You have any final thoughts you want to give on Cape Crusader?
The only thing I'll say is, come season 2, remind me of the fact that I didn't like season 1 and see if it changes. See if they're able to, grab my attention come season 2.
We definitely will, because season 2 is probably, I'd say, about 2 years away.
Yeah.
So we'll I'm assuming we'll still be doing this by then.
I would think so.
And hopefully we'll be a lot bigger by then. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. But I will say that similar to The Acolyte, I liked it, but I will agree that I don't think this really needed to exist.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those shows. Like, it's cool. I'm glad it's there, but it's not really. It's not exactly. I would have rather something else. I would have rather the Batman Beyond reboot.
Yeah.
I would have even rather a sequel to the animated series, even though I know he didn't want to do that. But I don't know. I kind of miss having the characters like Nightwing and stuff. But overall, it was a good series. I am looking forward to season 2. And even though I don't think it was like necessary, it still was done well, in my opinion. So yeah, it was just good to see more Bruce Timm, and I hope that with the success of this show, Prime decides, okay, let's make some more Bruce Timm style shows. Could we get a reboot of Justice League? Could we get more of 90s animated series at some point by somebody else? Could we get the Batman Beyond continuation? I'm going to keep bringing this up until I fucking speak it into existence. Okay? Like, at this point, it has to happen. So, I don't know. I'm curious to see if the Bruce Timmverse if this will be like the start of a new Timmverse, almost. Like a reboot of all his series. I don't know. It'd be interesting maybe to see like a Superman in the 1940s cartoon. Even though I know you don't like Superman.
Who?
Or like a Wonder Woman 1940s cartoon. There might be some stuff we could do here and expand upon. Maybe even a Justice League of America cartoon. But just bring back Batman Beyond. That's all.
Yeah, just leave it at that. Just give us that now, please.
But we'll see. We'll see what Prime and Warner Brothers, what kind of deals they cut. And that's it. That was our Cape Crusader thoughts and opinions. We hope you guys liked it. If you did, it'd mean a lot if you liked, comment, subscribed. Followed us at FireTruthCast on our YouTube, our X, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify. Follow us on Spotify. Give us that 5-star rating if you think we deserve it. If we don't, then I guess don't give it to us. But if there's anything you'd like to see changed about the podcast, you could hit me up on X too. As I mentioned earlier, we just put out a fireside chat about Batman Beyond and our thoughts on a potential revival for it, whether in animation or in a live action film, which is something we both agreed we wanted to see like a lot of. So if you're interested in that, go check that out. I also just put up a review on the Borderlands film that just came out, as I talked about earlier. You can go check that out and go check out all our other videos, our Deadpool Wolverine podcast. We have all sorts of stuff for you. Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and it's only growing. And it's going to continue to grow because next week we're going to get into something new that we haven't talked about. Alien 1979, which is a movie I've actually never seen before.
I think I've seen parts of it, so definitely gonna be fun to rewatch it fully.
Obviously, this is going to be, I think I'm saying this correctly. This is going to, that's because of Alien Romulus. I think it's called Romulus. I have to look that up just to make sure I don't sound like a fucking buffoon on here. But yeah, we're gonna go see Alien Romulus, and we're gonna do a fire review of that. But we want to do an entire nerdcast on the 1979 Alien because I know how revolutionary that movie is and how great it was for its time and still is to this day. So I've never really seen it before, so I can't wait to dive into that. We'll be diving into that next week, and like I said, we'll be covering Romulus on Fire Review. So definitely look forward to all that coming in the future. More fireside chats. We're going to be doing a fireside chat next week of which was better, X-Men 97 or Batman Caped Crusader. I think I already know what Marc's going to pick.
Yeah.
I'll leave my opinion for that video to keep everybody on the edge of their seat. Until then, we'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good day and goodbye.